Hello and welcome to Ageless Rock Channel, where megalithic fans get together and see megalithic sites from a different perspective. Everyone has heard of Turkey. Some may have heard of Nevşehir province, but Ozkonak town in Avanos district is definitely new to most people. Around 4,000 years ago, there were already clay tablets found in the region called Anatolia, also known as Asia Minor. From the clay tablets, a lot have been read and understood, and we are able to know what the ancient past looked like. However, it is rather disturbing to me that they never talk about carving bedrocks with ancient chisels into cities. Nevşehir province is an area full of underground cities, and you just have to wonder how did a civilization become so obsessed about hewing bedrock. This underground city is said to be large enough to hold 60,000 villagers for up to 3 months, as compared to the famous underground city at Derinkuyu, which is said to be able to hold 20,000 villagers. Ozkonak is 3 times bigger than Derinkuyu. Ozkonak is a small town in Avanos district with approximately 3,000 people. I can imagine 4,000 years ago it would be a lot less. But here we are wondering why ancient inhabitants would like to chisel into the bedrock out of fear of enemies to house 60,000 inhabitants. This underground city was discovered by a farmer by the name Latif Achar in 1972. He noticed that the water he provided for his crops mysteriously drained into the ground in an unusual manner. Today, the labyrinth has a nice entrance built on top you cannot miss, but you have to pay to enter. Entrance is free only if enemies are chasing you. The subterranean level of tunnels and chambers we call underground city is basically a structure that looks like underground creatures that burrow into the ground to call home. But for humans to live here with the idea that you are safe from enemies with spears is a little far-fetched to me. It is written and echoed everywhere that this bedrock is soft volcanic turf and tries to imply that this is something ancient people can do with ancient chisels. But the walls are severely lacking in chisel marks. There are no sun and rain to weather the surface to make it smooth. There are certain areas of the underground city so big that it is like a place for gathering, and there are connections only 5 centimeters in diameter. I would like to know how ancient people drill a long connection only 5 centimeters in diameter before overflowing them with praises for being ingenious and hardworking. It is said to be 40 meters deep and 10 levels down, but only 4 levels are open to the public. The estimation of being able to house 60,000 people for 3 months is something I doubt that it actually happened. Removing bedrock with chisels big enough for 60,000 people is a lot of work, and I would expect rubble to be recycled into something else or dumped somewhere we can find them. All these were done without any trace of rubble is a little suspicious to me. One of the features of underground city is the circular stones, which we are told they are stone doors to prevent enemies. Since I can see 3 round stones in the model, let's find out how useful they are for blocking enemies. The round stone in the yellow circle cannot save you from the enemies because the enemies can come from any angle, assuming the yellow arrow goes through a tunnel. Otherwise, you will trap yourself in a tiny room in the blue box. If it is meant to roll towards the yellow circle, the enemies can still get you from the 2 main entrances. Whether it is rolled left or right, there is no safe space in front or behind the round stone. Enemies can still meet up with you and ask politely, "Where do you want me to stab you?" The second round stone in the yellow circle is not a door for protection. If you roll it to the right, enemies are still able to come around in front or behind the round stone to ask, how would you like to die? Where is the tunnel to safety? Where is the room you can hide? How are you going to roll open the stone door if the stone is leaning on a wall? The same question can be asked for this third round stone. Whether you roll it to the left or right, enemies can still meet up with you whether you are in front or behind the round stone, just to ask politely, do you prefer spear or sword? So, the next time you see these stone doors, try and snoop around and see how you can be safe from the enemies. Try and imagine when enemies show up and you were busy looking for a few strong men to roll this stone with no handle or knob to hold. A door without a doorknob is not a good design. Also, don't forget to check out the ventilation shaft in the yellow circle, which everyone proudly says the ancient people were hardworking. Try and imagine yourself chiseling a tunnel as wide as your shoulder. Where and how do you stand to have enough room to hammer the chisels deep into the underground tunnels? Isn't this also a death trap where enemies can throw in fire to smoke you out? When archaeologists concluded this is a door, they have to come up with a reason why it is needed. They perceived that hardworking farmers would rather come down here and roll this stone for the sole purpose of preserving life. But this underground labyrinth is like cheese with more holes than cheese. I don't see any safe space for 60,000 inhabitants if they were to live here for 3 months. Looks like this is a pounding stone for grains because it has a depression. I wonder if there is any evidence of 3,000-year-old grain decay deep in the porous stone if you were to do forensic investigation in the lab. This place is dangerous for everyone because it is mostly dark or very dark with ancient candles or torches. So carving tunnels without stairs is not a very human nature thing to do. In fact, these holes are not something humans would do because it is extremely dangerous. This section is said to be the winery. A pot in the room is all you need to conclude that this whole thing was carved out for wine storage. Did ancient Turks carve this for wine, or was it used as such because it was already there? But there is something we have to know about the hole on the wall in the yellow box. If this is a winery, why do you need to have a hole that goes in at one end and comes out the other end? It is said that it was used to tie animals. Why would animals be tied in a wine storage area? This is actually a mark that shows the unknown ancient builders of megalithic culture was here first. You can see the same thing at cave number 1 of Ellora Cave in India. Over here, locals call this evil cave because they heard haunting screams like as if someone is tied by their hands and tortured. Do you think this is a coincidence? If you go further up Ellora Caves, cave number 24 has another interesting feature where the hole is cut through the stones on both sides. Here, it is believed that it was used to hang something like curtains. Whatever it can be used for today is basically believed to be what the ancient people had in mind. At Inca Watana in Ollantaytambo in Peru, there are 4 trapezoidal portal-looking false doors. If you stand in front of this doorway to nowhere, it will be just nice to tie both hands. No one knows what are those holes for, but I don't think Incas chip holes to tie llamas or goats. So, to make it more relevant and real, wine bottles are placed for tourists to see that storing wine is a great idea. But the random niche on random location on top tells me that someone else was here first. This tunnel is obviously very low and narrow. Since the narrative is that the underground city is for hiding from enemies, it is said that the ancient villagers were very smart because this low and narrow passage will slow down the enemies. But the 4 feet high tunnel will also slow down the villagers who were fearing for their lives. Ozkonak underground city is highly unlikely to be the product of a human race just by looking at the layout of the cavity. It looks like a design of an animal from the animal kingdom. It looks random and the chambers and rooms make no sense. We are just labeling the rooms based on what we think it was used for in ancient times. Look at these 2 holes placed immediately at the doorway. Many would have injured or died just by this poor design. From this photo, you can tell if people of Byzantine era carved this bedrock into caves, chambers and tunnels on the cliff. That means the one at the subterranean level is not for hiding from enemies. This is an architecture of a civilization unknown to human, and it doesn't look like it was made by human. The ancient Turks most likely did not chisel into the ground to hide from the enemies. There are plenty of caves in the open, and they definitely did not chisel these caves to call home. Ancient Turks live in houses with doors and windows they can open. They can make a castle with fort and a moat with the time they spend on carving holes in lava turf. The locals today took advantage of the current caves so abundantly available that they turned them into hotel rooms. Tourists not only get to see the tunnels, but they can even enjoy a good stay in ancient caves the modern way. Many of the original caves have been used by later civilization in ancient times. Today, we are committing the same crime of modifying and renovating the existing archaeological site of chambers and tunnels by turning them into hotel rooms and restaurants to eat and sleep. It would be a great experience to stay overnight inside the bedrock bedroom at one of these hotels where the famous tunnels and chambers are not just walking distance away but also part of your accommodation plan. When you are there, don't forget to snoop around and look out for evidence of a megalithic culture that left tool marks such as these niches on the wall. These 2 horizontal rows of niches are clues to a far more advanced civilization than we can imagine. They left behind cavities in bedrock that ancient people came to use, and today modern people use them in a different way. The Christians were here and many were simply used as rock-cut churches. But to conclude that Christians carved this is premature. The biblical paintings only proves that Christians discovered this and did some improvement to fit the purpose of worshipping God. Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this short presentation on Ozkonak underground city, which is 3 times larger than Derinkuyu, but many times less tourists. See you in the next video and have a wonderful day. This is Berniong signing out. Sonra Gurus Rus Gule Gule.